It's Monday, 11 July, the year of our Lord 2022. You're in the battleground. I want to thank everybody. We've got one of my colleagues, best friends, Dave Bossie. Dave, we were trying to get you on this morning, but you were busy running around and we had some technical issues. But two things I want to talk to you about. One, Maryland, Dan Cox, the ticket that's running there, Larry Hogan. Dave, you've been doing this a long time, and you're Mr. Conservative and Mr. Republican up in Maryland. On what planet is Larry Hogan competitive in running for president of the United States? Because isn't that the plan here, is to have Hogan's guys win next week, beat Cox, the Trump-backed candidate, and Hogan uses that as basically a pitch to the donors of the RNC that he can beat MAGA, he can beat Trump forces, and try to run some sort of never Trump campaign in 2024. Is that the overall strategy?
Yeah, it's not a very good one. I'll be honest with you, Steve. Let me just break down a few things if I could. Let me just give you a few numbers here, okay? In 2015, when Larry Hogan became governor, there were a little over 2 million registered Democrats, 954,000 registered Republicans. Today, there's 2.25 million Democrats and 993,000 Republicans. We have not grown the party whatsoever. The Democrats have grown their party in the 8 years under the Hogan administration. And in the state Senate and the state House, there were 33 Democrats in the state Senate. There are now 32 Democrats in the state Senate. We've picked up exactly one seat in the state Senate. In the House, we've gone from 91 Democrats to 99 Democrats and only 42 Republicans in the state House. This is not someone, he's trying to put his thumb on the scale, and I get what he's doing for his legacy and for him trying to run for president. But he has provided no assistance in 8 years, and I don't say this lightly. I like Governor Hogan personally, and I will say this to his benefit: the out of control left wing mob that runs Annapolis is only kept in check over the last 8 years because of Larry Hogan. But that isn't something that you can stand on. So when you're trying to put your thumb on the scale for the election next Tuesday in Maryland for the primary, you're creating a Hogan versus Donald John Trump, President Trump primary. And that's what's been set up here between Dan Cox and Kelly Schultz. And when people know in Maryland Republican primary voters know that President Trump supports Dan Cox, they're overwhelmingly voting for him. So I would submit to you that Dan Cox is going to be the nominee for governor in Maryland as of next Tuesday.
Walk me through it. You know Maryland pretty well. Do we have possibilities of making Maryland a potential swing state, or is this because Baltimore and then the suburbs of Washington? In other words, are we always going to be fighting a rearguard action, or do you actually see, because I know you love Maryland, is there actually a path, or was he up against this insurmountable demographics?
He is up against those terrible demographics. But let me just stipulate this. When there was a time about 15 or 20 years ago, there were 4 Republican members of Congress and 4 Democrat. We have 8 members of Congress from Maryland, 4 and 4. Today, it is 7 Democrats, 1 Republican, Andy Harris, great conservative from the Eastern Shore. With redistricting, we are now competitive in at least 2 other seats, and maybe even 3. The Maryland 6 is now a D+1 seat, and that is going to be a pickup, in my opinion. Then we're going to see in Maryland 2 and 3 outside of Baltimore, in Baltimore County, Harford County, those are going to potentially be pickups. Those are D+7 and D+9 in the 2nd and 3rd congressional districts. And what that means to people listening right now is, just to put it in context, in 2020, on election day of 2020, the generic ballot, which is what I was just talking about, was a Democrat +7 on election day. And we picked up 14 House seats. Right now, today, it is an R, a Republican +2 or 3. And that is a huge swing towards the Republican Party. And these seats that are anywhere in the single digits for Democrats are now winnable, which means dozens of races across the country. So Maryland has not only some congressional races, but county executive races. Mike Huff in Frederick County. We have Hornberger, Danielle Hornberger in Cecil County. We have Bob Casserly in Harford County, just a tremendous patriot, Bronze Star winner, going to be the next county executive there. We have in Anne Arundel County, Jessica Hare, who is a great member of the county council. She's going to be the next county executive in Anne Arundel County. This is the farm team that allows Maryland to be competitive in the future. To get to your point, is just like Virginia was going the wrong way, another outside of Washington, D.C., in Virginia was going the wrong way. Virginia elected Republicans to take control of the House and a Republican governor. Maryland can do the same thing.
Well, they did it because of a huge outpouring of MAGA. Is Hogan right? Is his theory of the case right that Trump is too hardcore, too populist, too nationalist for the land of easy living? And it's got to be a kind of a squish like a Hogan. You've got to be kind of an establishment guy that goes along and gets along. Understanding he's had some fights in Annapolis, but is his theory right? If you want to take Maryland back over, if you want to win these House seats, if you want to get more competitive in the state legislature, you can't go MAGA. Is Hogan right, or is Dave Bossie and Trump right?
Yeah, I think that there's definitely a path to victory for a conservative. You have to be very smart. You have to campaign very smartly. But just like Donald Trump did, just like the new governor in Virginia did, there's a way to win these races when you make it about the people, not about the personalities of the candidates. That's what needs to happen here. Just like in Loudoun County, Virginia, there was an outcry over CRT and what we were teaching our kids in school. Okay, that became a national issue. Those same issues are happening in Maryland, and the Maryland moms and dads, the Mama Grizzlies, can come out in Maryland just like they did in Virginia, and we're seeing it. We're seeing activity across the board. We just need, once we get past primary day, to support whoever the nominee is, because it's too important. It's too important. Like I said a moment ago, the only thing holding back the mob, that left-wing radical progressive mob in Annapolis, was Larry Hogan for the last 8 years. And we need a Republican governor to keep their boot on their neck, so that we don't have higher crime, defund the police, higher taxes, CRT in our schools. And that's just going to break Maryland forever.
Let me ask you, you're the only guy outside of Nebraska that saw this coming. I know you know the folks at Nebraska really well, you and Palumbo. Talk to me about what happened over the weekend, because this was an earthquake. The Ricketts control, as we saw in the primary, the Ricketts control the apparatus out there, and you had a populist, grassroots conservative revolt that shocked the Ricketts organization, overturned their leadership in the GOP. We had the guys on, I think Riggins and Watson on this morning, but you knew about this from the beginning and kind of were making some moves there. Tell us what went on in Nebraska.
Yeah, these guys who took over in Nebraska, I got to know them over the last year, and they're tremendous patriots, tremendous conservative activists who love Nebraska and love our country, and we're tired of seeing the same, vanilla milquetoast politics that the governor Ricketts really endorsed, and so they've had just incredible grassroots uprising. So the chairman of a local county committee became the new state party chair, overthrew the state party chairman, who had people arrested at the event, at the convention on Saturday. The police came in and arrested people who didn't agree with the politicians in charge. And so that only incensed that group even more. And this amazing patriot Jack Ricketts, who I've had the pleasure to now know for a while, is a tremendous guy, a tremendous man, who is someone who it was a lifelong Navy SEAL. Steve, this guy served from September 11th for over 20 years, September 11th, 2001, for over 20 years as a Navy SEAL. This guy is the real thing. He was a Navy SEAL commander. And I got to tell you, he is now a grassroots leader in Nebraska. And that's not the last you're going to see or hear from him, I can assure you.
One more time. Why did they have people arrested? I think this is what shocked people. We're going to try to get Riggins and Watson back on. Walk through the details. Why did they have grassroots people arrested?
Yeah, well, they were. I was obviously I wasn't there, Steve, but this is from what I read is that the state party chair at behest of the governor sent a letter to a number of people. It ranged somewhere between 6 and 10 people, saying you tried to oppose a Republican member of Congress. Let's say you ran against, Don Bacon, and you ran against Don Bacon. You are not welcome at this convention, and therefore, the words that you have said in running against him, we don't allow that here, and you can't come. So they did that to 6 or so people, and what happened is some of those people showed up, and they had no business arresting them, but the power of the state party was so complete that they were able to call the police and have citizen activists, volunteers who would, can you imagine this? Have the gall to speak truth to power, and that's all they did. And I hope that these charges will go away. We now have a new state party chairman, Eric, who I hope will just make sure that those charges are no longer pressed, and these people are welcomed into the fold, because you can't do that. I mean, that's what the left does. We can't do that.
I've never even heard the left doing that. I haven't heard people arrested. Dave, what's your social media? How do people follow you? Thank you for the update on Maryland. We'll be watching this closely in the run-up next week. Remember, it's a proxy war between Trump and Larry Hogan. Really, Larry Hogan represents the never Trump wing of the Republican Party. How do people get to you on social media, Dave?
Twitter and Getter, David_Bossie, and on Truth Social, Dave Bossie. So please follow me, and we got a lot of things going on. And these guys in Nebraska are the ones who came out and supported our film Rigged. That's how these folks really came to my knowledge, just that I got to know well through our film Rigged, our film on Mark Zuckerberg's rigging of the 2020 election.
How do you feel about the Wisconsin? Do you think you've done your job with Rigged, and that's why we got this ruling in Wisconsin? Is that directly driven by your activity?
Yeah, Steve, we're really pleased with it. Justice Gableman is a tremendous patriot, the leader of the effort up there in Wisconsin, a major part of our film Rigged, and so we need to see this happen all over the country, not just in Wisconsin, but in Michigan and in Pennsylvania and in North Carolina and the other battleground states. We must have them. We must win.
Well, I know we're going to work on it. Dave Bossie, thank you very much. Honored to have you on here. Let's go out to Missouri. Do you have Eric Greitens? Do we have Commander Greitens? Let's go to Commander Greitens. Eric, two things. 538, this poll, this kind of infographic it's got, and then the CNN. The first time that you don't make the flip seat category. Let's go to 538. Tell me about the polling out there, and what is this infographic? I don't know if Memphis has this or not, but if we do, I want to put it up. So, Eric, what do we got?
Well, here's the big news, Steve. We are winning the Republican primary because I am the MAGA candidate. I'm the America First candidate. And in Missouri now, this is MAGA versus McConnell. It's me versus rhinos. It's our campaign versus business as usual. Not only, though, are we winning the primary, the 538 numbers, which you pointed out, show that we are overwhelmingly going to win the general election. They ran 40,000 iterations of the Missouri race. They said Greitens is, in their words, the clear and overwhelming favorite to win. They said we win 94 out of 100 scenarios. So the really strong news here, Steve, is that this is great news for MAGA. It's great news for the America First movement. And obviously, it's fantastic news for our campaign. We're dominating. We're up against a lot of McConnell money. We're up against a lot of Karl Rove false, vicious attacks. But we've got the grassroots with us, and there's a lot of energy. 3 weeks, Steve, until the primary, August 2nd here in Missouri.
Okay, let's go back to this for a second, because I want to make sure people know 538 is the site. I think it's Ezra Klein. He's the math guy, right? He's supposed to be the best pollster, the best guy on the analytics. Walk us through again what their infographic said about what will happen with you and how many perturbations they ran on this, and why does it come out that you're winning in the general?
Yeah. So what they did, Steve, is that they have a model where they run over 40,000 iterations of the potential Missouri general election. And they compare all of these different variables. They work on all of these different parameters to figure out what are all of the possible permutations of the election. And what they found when they did that 40,000 times was that 94 out of 100 times, Greitens is dominating the election. And in fact, in another 4, it was like right on the margin. So it's literally 94 to 98 out of 100 times we are winning the general election. And the reason why this is so significant, Steve, is because I'm a MAGA candidate. I'm an America First candidate. And the rhino argument against our campaign from the beginning has been, Greitens is too pro-Trump. He's too MAGA. He's too America First. Greitens is a guy who fights against Soros. He fights against the left. He fights against the mainstream media. And the rhinos said, wouldn't it be more comfortable for everybody to have a rhino here in Missouri? And what we've done is these numbers prove definitively that not only are we winning the primary, but we're going to dominate the general election here in Missouri.
So did they give any reasons? Because this has been an onslaught from you from day one, that Greitens can't win. He may be the MAGA guy. He may be the guy that the War Room and all the hardcore Trump fanatics like, but there's no chance that he could be competitive in a general election. And, some of the people run against you. In fact, President Trump put out a few blazing truths, or whatever he calls them, on Truth Social, about some of the people in your race. But that totally puts that to a line. I don't understand what's changed, because you continue to run the same candidacy. You're not changing your message at all. In fact, you're probably, given all the attacks against you, more locked in than you've ever locked in. I understand that the economy's worse, the southern border's worse, the geopolitical situation in the world's worse, Biden's spinning out of control, the Democrats are in worse place. But is that what happened? Is that in 538, did the electorate come to you, or there's some change? Because if they had run this, I think, a couple of months ago, it wouldn't be 94 times out of 100 Eric Greitens would win, sir.
Well, one of the things that's happened, Steve, is that finally people are really digging into the numbers. And what's interesting is that it also puts a lie to the rhino argument that you can't have strong MAGA candidates. You can't have strong America First candidates in the general election. In fact, people want to have strong candidates. When I ran for governor in 2016, we pulled way ahead of where Roy Blunt did in the 2016 election. And I was obviously the stronger MAGA America First candidate, and we beat them in the general election. What these numbers are showing is that we're going to win the general election, and we're going to win it by a bigger margin than Roy Blunt won his seat, by a bigger margin than Josh Hawley won his seat. And what it proves is that the American people want to have people and leaders of courage, of compassion, of clarity, who are willing to take on the craziness of the left. And it also proves that they're highly suspect of the corruption and the cowardice in the Republican Party. People are gravitating towards me and my campaign because they know that I am an authentic leader who's going to stand up and fight for them. And they realize that we have to fight not just against the left and their craziness, but also against mainstream media lies and the corruption in the Republican Party as well. So fantastic news. And what it shows, as I said, is that this is great news in Missouri, and it's great news for MAGA and for everybody who supports President Trump.
I also want to go to the CNN. The CNN's been doing this since the very beginning of the cycle, and they always say the top 10 seats are going to flip. You started, the particular Greitens one, I think you started number 1 or 2. Right, in Missouri, that if Greitens win. Now you're not even in the top 10. In fact, I think it's Marco Rubio's replaced you. They got Marco Rubio as a higher percentage of being flipped than you're on the players to be named later. I think you're now number 11 or 12, but you're not in a number. Are CNN seeing the exact same thing that the 538 guys was it Harry Enton, who's a pretty good pollster? Is he seeing the exact same things that Ezra Klein, 538, Fox, all these other people are seeing?
Yes, sir. They're seeing the exact same thing. They're seeing the numbers, and they're seeing not only the quantitative numbers that are coming out of the polling data, they're also seeing qualitatively, Steve. When we show up in Missouri, and I go to Arnold, Missouri, and we're in a steakhouse, we will have 200 people turn out on a Monday night in Greitens t-shirts, grabbing Greitens signs. They are passionate. They are fired up. And then they look at our rhino opponents in the primary. They look at the crazy leftists in the general, and they see that they have nothing like that kind of passion. So I think what they're seeing, Steve, is that quantitatively, you look at the polling numbers, absolutely we're going to win. You also look on the ground, we've got a tremendous amount of support. And then finally, I think the last dynamic in this race, which has been proven, is that the Rove faction, the McConnell faction, and the leftists are down to nothing but lies. And this is the same dynamic that you see when they went after President Trump. They go after President Trump with the fake second impeachment. They're going after President Trump, as you well know, with this fake bogus January 6th committee. It's lie after lie after lie from the left and the rhinos. And now people have caught on to all of their lies. And because of that, what we're seeing is tremendous support. And in fact, Steve, the more people are hearing the Rove and McConnell funded lies against us, the more fired up they're getting. Literally messages from thousands of patriots a day in Missouri who are saying, if Rove and McConnell are opposed to you, I am 100% behind you.
You know, we had a MAGA, right to life, Trump movement revolt in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that got us the nominee for Doug for the governorship. In Illinois, you had to come from behind. They had a hedge fund guy spent, I think, $30 or $35 million in a primary, right? And Darren Bailey comes out of nowhere. Cortez out there campaign for it. Nebraska, just over the weekend, I think this is an earthquake because the Ricketts roll in hard and they roll in with money. They were having people arrested on Saturday. Once again, MAGA stands up. I'm seeing throughout the country, MAGA, I've never seen grassroots. And I tell you what, the precinct strategy, the people going to school boards, there's something happening out there. And what people want to see is action. I think one of the things that people admire about you is you're a man of action. They're tired of ringing doorbells, putting hangers on, giving money, small donations, knocking on doors, and not having any action. And are you seeing the same things we're seeing? And is Nebraska the latest in this? That in Missouri, you're seeing it too, that people are saying, hey, we're MAGA. We stand for America first. We stand for the Trump movement. And we're going to win. And we're going to win in general elections too.
100%, Steve. And what you're seeing is it's a basic law of leadership that in crisis, people are looking for strength. They're looking for leaders of experience. They're looking for men and women of wisdom and courage and compassion. They're looking for people who are willing to take bold action. And so when our folks in Missouri see that I'm the only guy who's actually out at the Freedom Convoy, for example, that I led the Freedom Convoy in my personal truck for 43 miles through the state of Missouri, led a rally of 600 people, they appreciate that. When they see that I'm down on the front lines of audits in Maricopa County, when they see that I'm I'm down on the front lines, going down to expose Joe Biden's border crisis by actually going into Mexico to expose all of the leftist lies. They appreciate that. When they see that I've got the backs of our police officers, when they see that I'm willing to stand up every single day and fight against the mainstream media and the rhinos, people are saying, that's our guy. This is in Missouri. It is MAGA versus McConnell in Missouri. It's Greitens as the pro-Trump America First candidate versus the rhinos. And we've got tremendous energy here. And as you said, Steve, I think this is a wave that's happening across the country, and not just in Senate races, in school board races, county executive races, mayor races. People are saying it is time to take our country back.
Eric, how do people find out more about the campaign, more about you and your social media?
Steve, we'd be honored to have everybody who's listening right now come on out and join us. We're at Eric Greitens, the @ EricGreitens. And you can also go out to our website, ericgreitens.com. Every patriot, if you're in Missouri, you can start voting now. If you're going to be absent on election day, make sure that you're planning to vote on August 2nd, and make sure every MAGA patriot who's out there is ready to join us. And honored to have anybody who's listening come join our team.
Commander, thank you very much for taking time away today to join us. There's definitely something happening out there, folks. Go to precinctstrategy.com. You can find out how you can sign up to be a precinct committeeman. Of course, we've got, Moms for Liberty, all of it. We'll be putting it up in the second part of the show. Short commercial break. We're going to be back with the family of the pastor, Arthur Pawlowski, and also Dr. Naomi Wolf in just a moment.
War Room Battleground with Stephen K. Bannon.
Okay, welcome back. Monday, 11 July, year of our Lord, 2022. I got to tell you, Nathaniel Pawlowski, your dad may be one of my favorite guests and favorite figures out there. He's a preacher up in Calgary that refuses to quit.
Calgary,
every
Alberta.
Time I turn around, he's getting arrested. Calgary, Alberta. Why do they keep every time your father goes out, they're arresting him for mask, no vaccine. They're coming in his church. I've never seen anything like it. Is he trying? People ask, is he trying to pick fights with the establishment, or are they trying to just hammer the fact that anybody? And I've got Naomi Wolf on next, who's the expert of all this. But why do they seem to single out your dad for such harsh treatment?
Well, that's a great question. It's because of a few reasons, actually. So one of them is, I'm sure you remember the Get Out video where he chased out the police officers from his church on Easter Saturday, when they tried to come in and shut down the church, essentially because we weren't enforcing the tyrannical health mandates. And he embarrassed them on a global scale. So a lot of this is a vendetta, but part of it is because he's such a front-running voice in Canada to the resistance. I mean, he's resisting all of these tyrannical rules and mandates that they're trying to implement. And he's showing Canada and the world how you can resist it and that you do not have to comply. So that is why they are coming down so hard for him. I mean, as you know, he spent 51 days, almost all of which was in solitary confinement, for giving a sermon to the truckers.
Do you believe that, and I'll have Naomi on a second, but do you believe, and does your father believe, that the evidence, the science, and the data, as we're learning more and more about this, supports the stand that he took about having the church services and allowing the congregation to come in, and other things that he believed about both the vaccine and the mask mandates, sir?
Absolutely. The data is coming in that the mandates actually did more harm than good, and everything that they did, I mean, they contradicted themselves so many times. None of it made sense. None of it was actually based on science. So what he did not cause any damage. Nobody got sick at our church. They were claiming that we're super spreaders, right? That was the mainstream lie that was being propagated by the left. And nobody was getting sick. Not one person in our church throughout the entire last 2 years got sick with COVID. We were seeing that people are being injured by the vaccines. So the data absolutely supports my dad's stand.
Do Do you think one of the reasons they came after him is not just embarrassment, but he would sit there having come from Eastern Europe and said, hey, my parents and I've seen this movie before. I've seen Marxism. I've seen communism. I've seen what they try to do. Do you think that's one of the reasons that not just the local, but the federal government, everybody came down on your father?
Absolutely. I mean, he grew up under communism, so he knows what it tastes like, what it smells like, what it looks like. So he's exposing this to the world right now, that this is what he grew up under. This is what he escaped from. This is why he came to Canada, because Canada offered freedom from persecution, freedom to practice your religion. And now we're seeing that they're arresting pastors. 5 pastors were arrested in my province alone for keeping their church open, for holding and officiating a church service. So he is exposing this not only in Canada, but on a global scale. As you know, he came here last year on tour to the United States to expose what is going on in Canada, because many people, they look at Canada and they think, oh, it's a free, they're the nice Canadians, they're free, they're kind of like the United States, when in reality we have become the very thing that my father escaped, which is a communist regime.
Sydney Chafian, I remember last year, Arthur came by and was actually in studio. Talk to us about, I think you're putting on another tour. Walk us through, and I hope on this one, I hope he won't get rounded up, or the family won't get rounded up. Tell us about what is going on. What's the current status of the tour?
Sure, thanks. So the current status of the tour is it is now getting off the ground. As you know, he was here last year, and we had already begun to plan the second leg of the tour before he even left the United States last year. As soon as he got back to Canada, he was arrested, subsequently arrested again, put in jail for 51 days. So that pretty much put the kibosh on the second tour we had been planning. He was released and then put on essentially house arrest. He can't leave the province of Alberta. So now we're in a situation where he has a very powerful voice, but how do we get that out there? And so he suggested that Marjana and Nathaniel come and speak on his behalf. And I said, absolutely. We had a little bit of difficulty getting them into the country because of the vaccine requirements. Thankfully, we were able to get them in. And so surprisingly, he actually surprised me last Thursday. I had no idea they were coming, and he calls me and says that they are in Montana and we can do the tour. So we have a few dates on the books. People can go to courageousfaithtour.com and find out the couple of dates that we actually have that I didn't cancel. And I will have the full lineup and full schedule by the end of this week. But the crazy thing about all this, Steve, and you know this, they'll do anything that they can to silence the powerful voices, the ones that lead, the people that are standing up and defying these tyrannical rules and tyrannical mandates. And Arthur was one of those people who came to the United States last year and essentially said, this is what's coming here if we don't stop it. We already see it, but he's just super powerful. And they do it to people in Canada, pastors, politicians. They do it to people here. We see that constantly. So it's up to us to stand up and stand together and fight this, because we are more powerful than all of them.
Give me one more time. The Courageous Faith, how do people find the tour? And this will be where Nathaniel and other members of the family will be speaking. Give us the site again so people can go to it.
Sure. It's courageousfaithtour.com. My company is Firebrand Action, firebrandaction.com. You can find it there too. And this tour will feature Marjana and Nathaniel Pawlowski, Laura Lynn, Tyler Thompson, and a few different venues. We're adding a number of other faith, really strong faith speakers. The lineup will be up hopefully at the end of this week. So courageousfaithtour.com. And if you forget that, you can find me on Getter, Cindy Chafian. I'm also on Truth Social, Cindy Chafian. You spelled my name wrong. So it's Chafian. And, or firebrandaction.com. They can email me there.
Okay. Nathaniel, what's your social media? How do people get to you?
You can follow me on Instagram, Nathaniel_Pawlowski, or you can go to our website, my dad's website, www.streetchurch.ca, streetchurch.ca, and you can help us out that way.
Nathaniel, your dad's a real hero of mine. I got to tell you, he is a rock of Gibraltar. Make sure you send our regards from the War Room. Look forward to having you guys on here when the tour gets up and cranked.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Sydney. Let's bring in Dr. Naomi. Well, Dr. Wolf, you warned us that America was going to turn into that, right? What was happening in Canada. Does it make your head blow up that somebody that basically stood up against masks, stood up against the vax mandates, has been 51 days in solitary confinement because he preached to the truckers, can't really leave his territory in Canada, and can't get them into the United States. They can't get in with the vax. Give us your thoughts before we get into all the business we got to go through with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's stunning. Every new low is stunning, but it's not surprising to that hero, right? Because he's seen it, as his son said, in Europe. He's seen it in communist regimes. And I guess what also really struck me as this was being described is how biblical it is. Like, I can't believe that in North America in 2022, we're having a scenario in which people are being imprisoned, let alone in solitary confinement, which, against the law to be part of, participate in. Because it causes psychiatric harm, and the fact that someone held their will in solitary confinement for preaching the gospel is, it is back to the first century CE, and I guess that's why we're supposed to. I'm so sorry. Why we're supposed to read history and read the gospel, because we'll recognize these demons when they arise and stand before us.
Okay, I have 11 minutes to go through everything with you, but I got to say first, I'm going to reverse the order. I got to talk about Bodies of Others, and I got to talk about how this book continues to build sales. What was the number on Barnes & Noble and these things? This book is taking on a life of its own, right? Normally books come in and have maybe a great book has a hot first week, then it tapers off. Bodies of Others continues to build as word of mouth gets out there. Because last time I looked, you don't have a big marketing budget. So talk to us about the book and how can people get it, and why do you think it's staying up there in these bestseller lists?
Yeah, so number 3, or was number 3, it's in the top 15 on Barnes & Noble nonfiction, which is a very big deal because it does mean word of mouth, because literally every legacy news outlet has refused to cover it. Steve, I have never, ever, ever, of my 8 bestsellers, global bestsellers, I've never had a bestseller that not a single legacy news outlet for whom I, spent the last 35 years writing, The Guardian or the New York Times or the Washington Post, nobody is covering it. So it really is these wonderful readers who are, buying multiple copies to give to their friends or loved ones because they want them to have the information that will empower them to understand what's coming at us, and also to unpack the lies. I mean, we heard in the previous segment that this group was called Super Spreader. Well, the New York Times, in the Bodies of Others, I show how they just made things up by misinterpreting data and studies. The New York Times claimed that South Dakota, a gathering of motorcyclists, was a super spreader event, or that kids could transmit, the illness in schools, and or restaurants had to close because, you could get sick from someone sitting several tables away. Well, they had to distort and misrepresent those studies in order to create those narratives. So these are just people not being told what to do by the New York Times, but recognizing that this is a thoroughly documented explanation of who these bad guys are who have tried to hold us hostage in the West for the last 2 years and what we can do about it.
You've got your group, which is doing all this research. We want to talk about that. They come up with new stuff every day. There's also other reports coming out every day. I mean, where do you think we stand in the bid and the ask of actually getting real information out there and that being accepted? Whereas it seems to me CDC and FDA are doubling and tripling down. We just had a special of the weekend on the administrative state, but the medical biopharma industry is to me lockstep, double and tripling down. They're never going to concede anything. So where do you think, where do we stand with this, and how should people conceive it?
Yeah, well, the good news, I mean, there's a lot of good news. We had another letter go out to another attorney general, this one in Massachusetts. 2 of our lawyers wrote a very stern letter about the harms to pregnant women and babies that the War Room, Daily Clout, Pfizer research volunteers have documented. So that's our 5th Attorney General letter. And as you know, because we talked about it last week, the FDA also got back to our team of lawyers who are creating a citizens petition to stop the FDA from injecting minors. But you're right, they're doubling down. But I have something important to share with you all. Well, one is they're doubling down even though kids are dying. You know, we talked last week about how Rochelle Walensky is just lying about how many kids have died with COVID and absolutely misrepresenting the reality on her own website when she claims that COVID is the top 5 causes of death for kids. But a very sad data point that is correct from the VAERS database, a government database, which under records, right, adverse events, shows that as of the start of July, this July 2022, 126 minors under 17 have died subsequent to being injected with this mRNA vaccine. 55 of these kids died within 7 days of receiving the injection.
Hang on. Whoa. Just walk people through where you're getting that from because it's so explosive. Let's go back, hit the rewind. Just walk us through where are you getting this evidence?
So this is Dr. Henry, who is aligned with 2 state senators in Oregon, Senator Linthicum and Senator Thatcher, in stopping the CDC, like this is their area, the CDC lying about the data as opposed to telling the truth about the data, covering up harms and of the vaccines and exaggerating the harms of COVID, basically. So this is their analysis, and the source of it is the VAERS database, where doctors and nurses and patients are supposed to record adverse events. So this is Dr. Ely's analysis of the VAERS database, and I can post the link to the VAERS database where he got this information. But also remember that last week we showed that Rochelle Walensky was just fibbing in claiming these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of deaths of kids with COVID and claiming that it was in the top 5. So she's being fact checked. And, you know, they're also, the clock is ticking with that effort for a grand jury investigation. As you recall, they have 60 days, and we're about 20 days into that. Walensky has about 60 more to get back to this demand for a grand jury investigation. But everyone should know that they're lying.
So hang on. I just want to make sure. You're saying, out in Oregon, you're saying that Walensky and CDC are putting out what you're representing and asserting is false data that you can prove from what's out there, that more kids are dying, that is much more lethal to kids than it actually is, to many orders of magnitude. On the other hand, you're saying what's really lethal, and the virus data shows that, is the vaccine. So they're actually pushing something, first off, that's not totally necessary. And as they push it, that's killing kids. Is that basically your case?
Yes, except for the first part of what you said, it's a little bit different. They're lying about their own data, right? Their own data show that COVID deaths are like 15 on the list of deaths for kids, you know, way after many, many other causes of death. And they're misrepresenting their own data in saying, oh, it's the top cause of respiratory death, for instance, a respiratory infection. That's not true. Pneumonia and influenza are the top cause of respiratory death for kids. They're lying in saying it's in the top 5 of all causes of death. It's in the top 15 deaths with COVID. And the biggest thing this team found, and I can't say it enough, is that the CDC very cleverly gamed the whole system 2 years ago by changing how all deaths were reported that involved COVID, including kids' deaths, in such a way as to lie. Basically, because they took what would have been a contributing factor listed 1, 2, 3 on the form, and the child or the adult died actually of an accident, or the child or the adult died of cancer, or diabetes, or an asthma attack, right? And they moved it down. If it involved COVID in any way, and all they needed was a positive PCR test, they moved COVID down to the final line, which is how the database, which you remember I kind of, I'm a nerd about databases. I explained how databases are aggregated. When you move it down to the final line, that's the cause of death that the machine counts, even if the child died of something completely different, even if the adult died of something completely different. So that's the finding of this team of 2 state senators and Dr. Ely, and that's what they're demanding a grand jury investigation about. So it's not that they're presenting bad data. Data is bad, but they're miscounting it in the first place. They're counting it wrongly, intentionally, right? They actively moved to change the form. And they're also verbally giving you sound bites that are not true about even the data that they have themselves. They're exaggerating the harms to kids of COVID, Rochelle Walensky specifically. And absolutely, no one's lying about the VAERS database because no one's being asked, the CDC is not being asked about the kids dying. They should be in the VAERS database. Children's Health Defense showed that there are over 29,000 deaths now of people of all ages in the VAERS database subsequent to the injection. But if a reporter was doing his or her job, and sadly we have a situation now where doctors and state senators are doing the jobs that reporters are not doing, they would find that according to Dr. Ely, who so far has been right every time, and we'll post the URL, there's over 100 deaths of kids under 17, including 55 within 7 days of the injection.
Naomi, we got about a minute. Give us how people can find out more, how they sign up, how do they join up, how do they get the book?
I will, but I also want to headline my next appearance, which is that it turns out, as I feared, I found the evidence to show that Pfizer and Merck have partnered with a CCP-owned manufacturing plant, Fosun Pharmaceuticals, owned by Sinopharm, which is the CCP's pharma company. And they've opened manufacturing facilities in Boston and Princeton, New Jersey, and they're making Pfizer's medications there and distributing them to 10 countries around the world and making the PCR tests.
We'll have you back on. We'll have you back on in the morning to do that on the morning show. Real quickly, I want to make sure people get to your site and get to the book.
dailyclout.io is where all the reports are, and also I'll post these URLs. And the book is The Bodies of Others, and you can get it at allseasonspress.com, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, and I'm Dr. Naomi R. Wolf on Getter. And thank you.
This book only builds every week. You got to read it. You will not put it down. Naomi, thank you. We'll have you back on tomorrow morning talking about the CCP. Until tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock, you've been in the War Room.